Hey, this is Pastor Bill, and I want to thank you for joining us for 5-Minute Bible Study. We are again continuing our reading year in the Bible, and we've now done Genesis, Exodus, we're done Leviticus, and we've now moved into Numbers. And the story of Numbers is really a continuation of the story of the Exodus. This is the story of the people in the wilderness. They've now moved past Sinai. That's where Numbers really picks up, is we've continued on in the wilderness past Sinai. And what's continued on also is the complaining. You know, they complained when Moses brought them out of Egypt. They said, oh, wasn't it great in Egypt? Let's go back. Well, slavery wasn't so bad. And they said things like, wasn't there meat in our pots in Egypt? Didn't we have onions? It wasn't so bad. We should go back. And they start attacking Moses and Aaron. And they're saying they brought us out in this wilderness to kill us. And then they're complaining about to God. God provides them manna, bread of heaven to feed them. And they, this isn't good enough. And they say, we need meat. And God brings them quail. And yet they still complain. They're thirsty. And so God says he'll provide water. He tells Moses to pray for it. Moses hits it with a stick and makes it about him and shows off a little bit, and God doesn't like that. But that continues on, and what we now find ourselves reading along with them at the Promised Land. They're on the verge of it. And this is a wonderful story that we have to wrestle with, of fear versus faith. So Moses sends 12 spies into the land. And they go around and they see that it's full of milk and honey. It's this beautiful land. It's plentiful. But they also see the inhabitants and they say, we don't think we can take them. It's too much for us. So they come back, and 10 of the spies say, they're like giants to us. We are like grasshoppers to them. These must even be descendants of the Nephilim because they're so massive. These must be descendants of, some kind of divine or angelic being. We can't contend with them. And so we shouldn't go. We're not willing to do this. Even though God has promised this land to us, we won't go. But there are two that say, Caleb and Joshua, they say, don't rebel like this. Don't do this. God is with us. God has carried us out of Egypt. Do you not remember all that God did? God has carried us through the wilderness. God has provided for us. Do you not think God will provide for us in this? And so this becomes the decision, right? Do we focus on our own strengths and our own limitations and what we think we can do because of who we are? And do we make it all about us? And it's okay to then respond in fear to that. There's reasons to be afraid if all we have is our own skills and abilities and talents and strengths. Or do we respond with faith? And do we trust in the character and the goodness and the lovingness and the faithfulness of God? Again, God has been faithful to them this whole way. Why would God stop now? But they decide not to go. And so God says, you know what? Okay, you don't have to go. You don't want to go? Don't go. Actually, you can't go now. For a generation, for 40 years, you can't go into the Promised Land because you're not ready for it. See, this is the thing I think happens a lot of times. We feel that God maybe punishes us, maybe keeps us out of the Promised Land, but it might be that we're not ready for the Promised Land because we're still responding with fear, because we're still making it all about us. This is a real issue I think we struggle with as a Christian people, this desire to slowly make the whole thing about us and who we are and what we want, rather than talking about who God is and who God wants us to be in the kind of kingdom God wants and what we're called to do in that. If I give you a Christmas present and you take it and you set it aside and you don't open it, I've been gracious and caring and thoughtful and giving, and you haven't received it. You've chosen not to. That doesn't mean that I didn't give you the gift. See, this is what God does. God gives us the promised lands in our lives. God gives us all these blessings, and so often we choose to set them aside for whatever reason, because of fear, because of doubt, because of whatever choice we make. And then we look and say, what has God done for me? God gives me nothing. And yet surrounding us is all these blessings that are available to us that we don't open ourselves up to. So I hope you read that in the story of the 12 spies and Caleb and Joshua and their faith. Be inspired by that. Catch you next week.